On 3, 2.
And welcome to Cabomil News and Community Update in English. This is Corey Riggs, and today is August 21st. We're recording this August 21st. You will hear this on August 23rd, Sunday at 6 p.m. on Cabomil Radio. I am with Claudia Velo. Claudia, how's it going today?
It's nice and sunny out here, so all good.
Well, it's really good to hear. You know, I'm coming to you live from our international studios in Arizona. I got stuck here a little bit. So I was supposed to come back today and do this interview from Cabo, but of course Genevieve had other ideas. And I'm glad to hear it's sunny in Cabo, and I'm very happy to know that Genevieve was not Odile and had nothing to do. But I have to tell you, being here and watching the track, it kind of brought up some PTSD for me, because I remember that same track when we would watch Odile, and it looked like it was going to go off in the Pacific, and boom, that Sunday morning, it just came right towards us. So yeah. Very happy that the waters weren't that warm around Cabo.
No, it was, everything worked to our benefit, and in the end, we did get a lot of wind because we were within the radius of the maximum wind strength. But at the end of the day, it brought wind that wasn't that strong. I mean, we did have 90 miles per hour gusts, but and some rain, but the damages were really minor. So we're all good.
Well, that's good. Well, I know we're going to talk about more later on in the show. If we have time, we'll talk more about the cleanup and some of the trash that's shown up on the beach and those types of things, and what we as a community we need to do about that. So we'll address that. But without further ado, we are so excited to have our next guest, and we've been planning for this guest for a while now. We're excited that we figured out when to have him on, and I'm just going to read a little bit about him. Daniel Becker is chairman of the board and chief executive officer of Grupo Financiero Mifel, based in Mexico City. Prior to being named to his current position in 2003, Mr. Becker served as chief executive officer at Valorum, Sociedad Operadora de Sociedades de Inversión, from 1999 to 2002, and CEO of Republic National Bank of New York from 1994 to 1998. He also served as VP of the Executive Committee of the Mexican Banks Association and board member of Grupo HIR, one of the most important real estate development groups in Mexico. Mr. Becker holds a bachelor's degree in business administration from Instituto Tecnológico Autónomo de México and 2 master's degrees in business administration, one from Instituto, oh, you're loving my Spanish right now, Instituto Panamericano de Alta Dirección de Empresas, and the second one from MIT. MIT is easy to say.
That's correct.
He has also completed graduate studies in corporate finance at ITAM and has a degree in business administration at Harvard Business School. Welcome, Danielle. Thank you for being here.
On the contrary, thank you very much for the invitation. I'm very glad to be here.
Well, I heard. Go ahead, Claudia. Sorry.
My son is a young adult. He's 23, and he's not easily impressed. And when I told him who was going to be in the show, he's like, "The real Daniel Becker?"
Really?
So I earned some credit with my son. Thank you, Daniel.
No, maybe he's confused. I don't know who was thinking about it.
No, he's not. He said the Itami guy from Banca Mifel. I said, yeah, that's the one. So
thank you very much. And the contrary, it's a pleasure and an honor to be here.
Well, we've been wanting to have you on the show, Danielle, ever since we heard you in April. You were on with another program at Cabomil in Spanish, and we have a lot of requests from our English-speaking audience and our expats to really talk about the banking system, really understand it, because there's a lot of confusion about the differences, and also, obviously, right now with the pandemic, to talk about what the outlook is going forward. And so we're going to get into a lot of those subjects. If you're watching, we're going to have an interview with Danielle for about 25 minutes, and then you're going to have a chance. We're going to go to a break, and we're going to ask your questions. So if you're on Facebook Live right now, please enter your questions. It's your chance to talk to Daniel Becker. And before we get into the serious topics, Danielle, I just want to ask you a question here, because I was doing some research on you, and I want to share this. And if you're not following Danielle on Twitter, you should be, because it's incredible. I was reading through some of the quotes and those types of things. But what I saw here, can everybody see this? Everybody's on Facebook Live, can. That looks like Jimmy Fallon to me.
It is. Actually, it is.
And I'm not starstruck by very many people, but I am starstruck by him. He's what a talented man. So can you tell us a story about that picture?
Of course. Actually, it's a funny story because we were having dinner with my wife and children in New York, and we saw this guy. And my daughter, she told me, "Dad, I want a picture with this guy." So I knew the owner of the restaurant, which is a very, very famous Italian restaurant in the place. And she told me, "No way, you're gonna touch this guy." So when we were leaving the place and we were on the stairs, on the layers, going out of the place, he was with another man. So suddenly he saw us and he hears that we were talking in Spanish. "Hey, hi, ¿cómo están? How are you?" So we started a conversation, and he told me, "You know who is this guy?" And to be honest, I told him, "No, I don't know who is this guy. I know who you are, and you are our fan in Mexico City, in Mexico, but I don't know who is this. Do you know one of the most famous and most beautiful singers in Mexico, which is called Thalia?"
Oh, yeah.
"Mr. Tony Motola." So to make a long story short, we went back to the place. We have a couple of drinks. We had a wonderful conversation. We talked about Mexico, about the world. We have a few drinks, and then we spent like about maybe 45 minutes and an hour. He left, by the way, in a red car, in a yellow cab.
Okay.
Not Tony. But it was a wonderful, and then in the outside, we had a couple of pictures, but we have he's very funny. He's very clever. And Tony Motola, he knows Mexico. Wow. He knows everything what's going on in Mexico. So it was that's, to be honest, I couldn't say he's my friend, but we have a 45 minutes conversation. And it was tremendous.
Wow. Well, hopefully we're a stepping stone. This show is a stepping stone to get on the Tonight Show. I mean, who knows? Maybe we'll see.
Exactly. Maybe next time he will be with us.
Maybe so. No, what a great story.
It is. And it's very funny. It's, he's one of a kind.
Yeah. No, definitely. Very talented. Well, for all of you out there, I just showed you his Twitter page. It's at Daniel, at D Becker F. So Daniel Becker F. If you look him up, you can follow him. Lots of great stuff on there. We can talk a little bit more about that later. But Daniel, let's get into it and just talk a little bit about Banca Mifel. A little history about Banca Mifel and where it sits in Mexico and the banking industry and those types of things.
Sure. Banca Mifel was started by my grandfather. Actually, Mifel is the acronym of the name of my grandfather, who started this business 56 years ago. Then when Carlos Salinas de Gortari was president of Mexico 26 years ago, they granted for the first time after 26 years, of 25 years, they granted new franchises. Because as you remember, in I don't know exactly which month, in '82, the banking industry was nationalized by the government. And then they started to sell again the banks, and they granted new franchises. To be honest, Mifel was the first franchise that was granted after maybe almost 30 years that the market was totally closed for new participants. So then we started in a very small scale. I left the bank. It's a long story. Maybe we'll need a few programs to talk about this story. But I moved away 10 years, and then I came back, and I've been here for the last 14 years, and the bank has been in business for 25 years. But really, I would say that the bank started to grow at a national level in 2013. Now we have 81 branches in 14 states of 32. And we have also 3 business centers. And we are the 11th bank in terms of assets among all the banks, which in Mexico now we have 50 banks. And talking about the difference between Mexico and the States regarding the banking system, which is a very interesting story. In the United States, even though the States has been going into a consolidation process, In the States, they have 7,000 banks, many of them as community banks, right? And in Mexico, we have 50 banks with a population of 120 million inhabitants. I know it's double in the States, but you have 7,000 banks, even though it has been a process of mergers and acquisitions. But what we try to do, and we have a couple of role models in the States, it's whenever we leave Mexico City, as for example, Los Cabos, to mention a place, we like to become like a community bank. And I would say that's one of our value propositions.
I mean, just to speak from experience in Los Cabos, I mean, it's definitely, I've been with a few Mexican banks, and I have to say, and it's definitely not just because you're on this program, I love my experience with Banca Mifel, and I have not loved my experience with other banks. And so, and I know that your director in Los Cabos, Gabi Gutierrez, she's like the go-to person for all the folks that need information. I mean, she's always getting calls, and people really want to know what's going on, not just about Banca Mifel, about other things. So really have done a great job. And I know that a lot of the expats that bank there, it's very personalized, and it definitely is a different feel. And so that's a really nice thing that you created. I know in Los Cabos. So.
You know, let me tell you, maybe I would say the secret sauce of this differentiation, I would say it's to have the best people. You know, first of all, I mean, if you treat your collaborators, your employees in a right way, and you really care about them, they're going to take care of your customers. So this is our first mantra. Second, you must have the best people in town. And third, even though this is a very digital industry that is going through a very deep transformation, and it's unimaginable what's going on with the banking industry. It's so disruptive. But if you lose the human touch, and if you think that the digital transformation is going to be everything, I think you are in a lose-lose situation. If you are able to have a perfect mix, which is very difficult to understand where is the perfect mix, between having a very strong digital space, but not lose the human touch, I think that's, and if you add the right people with the right person in the right places, which it's very easy to say, very difficult to implement. You know, in MIT, they used to say many years ago, I mean, strategy, it's a commodity, execution, it's an art. So, I mean, that's a strong message for your son, Claudia. I mean, and I really believe that. Yes. So, I mean, I think that's one of our secret sauces. We really think in every detail, because as you know, the detail, the devil is in the detail. So we know we have to be very careful the way we craft. And you know, Cabos, it's different than Monterrey. Monterrey is different than Mexico City. Mexico City is a big city. And Mexico City is different than Puebla. So if you don't tropicalize each of your different places where you have business, and you try to do the same, I think that's when it happens. What you just mentioned about your experience in different institutions. They have specific rules. Nobody takes any kind of different approaches. They don't have any kind of empowerment, and I think that makes a difference.
No, it's a huge difference. Go ahead, Claudia. I could talk all day, as you know.
I know.
You got to jump in.
Absolutely. You have to understand the things, the nuances that make a community different. And I think that's something that businesses that are successful here in Los Cabos know how to do that. And obviously Banca Mifel has achieved that, especially because we are a community where there's a lot of expats, and we have an important foreign community. And for them to make that transition and understand, why should we now really embrace all our operations in Mexico versus continuing to try to bank with the States and do everything via transfers that end up costing them more money. I think that's something that the banking industry needs to really understand, how to help their customers make that transition. And
You know, Claudia, when you have 25 million customers, it's very difficult to look for this kind of details, right? So you really become, it's like McDonald's or a Burger King. You can add tomato or no tomato. I mean, that's you have a few options, right? You have to work like a process that doesn't have many capacities to move. And I mean, you can arrange some kind of, but at the end of the day, having 25 million customers, it really becomes, we have 250,000 customers. And I would say some of our challenges looking forward is to keep the same business model that makes a different customer experience. Let me give you an example. We have branches in León, Guanajuato. León, it's full of manufacturers that come from Japan. So we take care of the Japan consulate, el consulado de Japón. So our advertisement, it's in Japanese. And we have two guys who speak Japanese. So that makes the difference. But I mean, there are simple things that you have to be there, think about it, hear your people, hear your employees, and take the time to make things happen. Same in Cabos, we have our staff is bilingual. We started 2 years ago with the property trust. As a matter of fact, now we are the second bank in terms of volume, but it's not about the volume, because if you have a lot of volume, but you lose this human touch and you become another big institution that it's gonna lose this kind of knowledge and this kind of customer experience, which is, I mean, being so regulated and have a customer experience which really makes you feel good. Believe me, it's not an easy task to achieve because you have to comply with many things. We are very highly regulated. And then maybe, Corey, this is a very important thing for your American radio listeners. Mexico has been one of the countries, Mexico has been the first country who adapted Basel III. Basel III, it's a small town in Switzerland where they make and they rule all the rules for the banking system. There are defined in Basel. By the way, Agustín Carcens, who used to be our central banker, and now he is in Basel, and he's the central banker of the central bankers, okay? So Mexico has a very high standards in terms of, after 82 that we have, our financial system get bust. Now I would say we have one of the most strongest financial systems in the world. So you have to comply with all those Basel III measures, and even with that, having the right customer experience, it's a really hard day-to-day, everyday work, and to try to, you have to calibrate, you have to take decisions, you have to be very near the people who run different stores outside Mexico City. Because, many times what happens is when you have your base in Mexico City, then Los Cabos become something that nobody takes care about it. No? They never go to the place, they don't understand what's going on, because really Mexico City, it's 60% of the economy, it happens here. So you could be only in Mexico City. But if you believe that you want to be a national or a regional bank, you have to really make things different for each state. Each state has different characteristics. So I think that's one of the important things to be aware and to really implement them.
Well, I mean, first of all of us are learning a lot right now, and thanks for all that information. And we're going to get into some of the bigger economy questions. But one of the things I do know about Banca Mifel, also in Los Cabos in particular, is it's the only bank that you can actually go open an account and not have permanent residency. And that's a huge deal. I work at a golf course development and people that live there part-time. And, I'm not sure all the regulations or how that was figured out, but it's a huge deal for the expats that live there part-time. And it's a great thing that you guys have done. And it's great to hear that you're doing different things in each bank.
You know why? Because when you're not number one and you're really, we're not chasing the number one player. We want to be the best.
Mm-hmm.
And if we have a question, we come immediately with our counselor, with our legal department, and we say, okay, we already have the idea of a customer. He has a property trust with us. We know everything about the customer. We know that's possible in terms, are we complying? Yes. So let's do it. Let's try to let's do whatever we have to do, but don't ask one more paper, because if you do that, you become part of this gray, impersonal abuse. You're done. I mean, you understand what I mean?
We like to say, put a fork in you. You're done.
A fork in it. You're done. Correct. Exactly.
Well, let's talk about the bigger economy right now. What do you see as the outlook right now for Mexico? And then we can pivot to Los Cabos. We've got about 5 minutes before we're going to take a break. Please put your questions for Danielle before we take our break. Put your questions in the Facebook chat. But yeah, what do you see, Danielle, coming down the pike here?
Well, there are many things, because some of them I'm pretty sure they're going to happen, and some of them nobody knows what's going to happen. The economy is going to shrink at least 10% year to year, January, December. I think there's going to be a very slow recovery. Our economy department believes that we're going to be able to have the same GDP level of 2000 and from 2019 until 2024. So that means this is going to be a very gradual recovery. I think that the idea that the government decide in terms of not increasing the fiscal deficit, because we don't have the space that has the Federal Reserve or the United States or the Treasury. In my personal point of view, it was a good idea, because, being an emerging market, international investors are very, very observant in terms of the ratios at the country level. So I think it won't be any support from the government for small and medium enterprises, which has been very criticized by many think tanks. But in my point of view, if this goes, let's say, until January, I think it was a great idea. If not, maybe the recovery is going to be more than 2024. Maybe it's going to be 2026. But I think that you will see a stable economy in terms of the FX, the quotation peso dollar, which is below 22. Interbanking quotation. The peso has been relatively strong in the past months. But I think, to be honest, nobody knows exactly how deep it's going to be, this recession, and this has to do with when the vaccine is going to be ready. And I think that has to do with Mexico, and that has to do with the States, and that has to do with all over the world.
Absolutely.
I think the banking system is going to be resilient. I think all the banks in Mexico, in general terms, are very well capitalized. They have a lot of liquidity. But if this becomes a really huge crisis, which I think in May we got to the bottom, and now we're starting to see some recovery. We hope now to have new, I don't know how you call it in English, new rebrotes, new
outbreaks.
I'm sorry?
Outbreaks.
Like it happens in Arizona, for example, or in California or in Florida. I think that if Mexico takes the right decisions, we already touched bottom, unless something happens.
Okay. Well, listen, we're going to take a little break. We're going to have you back after the break. Please put your questions for Danielle in the Facebook chat, and stay with us. We'll be right back.
3, 2.
And welcome back to Cabomil News and Community Update with Corey Riggs and Claudia Velo, and with our special guest, Daniel Becker. We are having a great conversation with him. And I know lots of you have questions that you've put on the chat and Facebook Live. And I have to tell you, if you are listening to this on the radio, you got to go check it out on Facebook Live, because there's lots of bonus material, lots of great quotes that you're going to get from Danielle that you're not going to get on the radio show. You got to go listen to it on Facebook Live. And Danielle, speaking of quotes, I was going through your Twitter page, and there was one from John F. Kennedy that I thought is definitely apropos of what's happening today with the elections in the United States. There's elections going on in Mexico as well. Obviously not for president, but for other things. And I love the quote. Can you, and now it's in Spanish, but maybe you, I know John F. Kennedy did it in English, but about mathematics. And I just think it's incredible. And especially what we were just talking about on Facebook Live about doing things right.
You know, I think I love that quote because 2 + 2 is 4. You cannot get mistake, right? So when you're in politics, you have to be, what you say, you have to deliver it. Mathematics, it's not what I think. You know, I was almost in that number, but I failed for about 0.10 P. It's 3.1416, whatever it is. So math, it's like politics. It has to be done in a precise and a perfect way. You can be mistaken, but at the end of the day, the result should be one, and that result should be the result for everyone. And I think if you as a president, even though you do mistakes, but you know that you want the best for your people, you have the right outcome. And math doesn't get wrong. They always have the right outcome.
Yeah.
I think it makes a lot of sense for many people who are not thinking, now you're having elections in the States in next November. We have in Mexico elections, not for president, but for the Cámara de Diputados, for the Cámara de Diputados, and some governors. In 2021, it's the biggest elections in Mexico. And you know, we need people who deliver precise and things that they really believe that the outcome is going to be.
No, absolutely. And again, if you're not following Daniel Becker yet on Twitter, go to @DBeckerF, Daniel Becker F. You can find him on Twitter, and there's lots of great stuff on there. Please follow him. And, you know, Daniel, you were talking about the banking system in Mexico and how it's regulated by the Basel system. Is the U.S. banking system the same, or is it not? How is that? How does it compare in those?
No, you know, in the States after the crisis of 2008, even though Dodd-Frank, Paul Volcker, who already passed away, who used to be the treasurer and then advisor for Barack Obama, they did many things, but the cushion of capital, the ICAP, which is the cushion of capital from each bank in the States is lower. They have more room. But I think they have done a tremendous job. But I think in terms of some definitions of regulations, cushions, Mexico still has a stronger regulation by the Bank of Mexico, Secretaría de Hacienda, the Treasury, and like the Banking Commission. I think in the States, in Mexico, for example, if you have an ICAP index, a capital index below 10.5%, you have a red flag. I think in the States, there are some banks which equity ratio with an ICAP that is less than 8%, and they still working on a normal basis. Even though they asked for the big banks to have a bigger cushions of equity or capital. But I would say that Mexico, because it's a smaller system, Mexico cannot allow to have another bust of the banking system, because as you know, whenever there's a bank that collapse, those who pay those banks are the people who pay taxes.
Yep.
They save banks through the fiscal system. So I think that the most unpopular thing to do, especially in third world countries, is to save a bank with tax people's money. Especially when you really have to I don't know if you know that, but Mexico is one of the countries of the OECD countries that has the lowest, how you say, recaudación, the lowest
of taxes, right? Of collection of taxes, right?
It has the lowest collection of taxes compared with other countries from the OECD. For example, we're at the same level that Guatemala, 13% of GDP. Brazil, 35%.
Wow.
United States, well, now I don't know exactly how, but it used to be between 30 and 35%. So, you know, Mexico, so it's very unpopular to have to save a bank. Mm-hmm. So I think that makes the government to be very observant in terms of the quality of the assets and the quality of the management of each institution.
Claudia, why don't you ask some questions that came in on the chat there, and we'll get to some of those
questions that came in from the chat. One is, what's the expectation of real estate market in Los Cabos, particularly in the residential segment? And is Mifel supporting or funding this type of investment projects from the banking perspective?
Absolutely. Let me tell you something that I think is very interesting, because as you know, Cabos is booming in terms of real estate. Mm-hmm. And trying to analyze the reason, which I think Los Cabos, even though it's Mexico, it's like an appendix of California, right? Mm-hmm. So you are able to get mortgages in Los Cabos from banks in the States. Now you can get a mortgage in the States for about 3% or 2.85 for 30 years. That means that's for the States, obviously, but you can, if you're a good client of a bank, you can translate that to Los Cabos, because Los Cabos has a strong state of law. And mm-hmm. I know that banks in the States feel comfortable with the Mexican, with Los Cabos in general terms. So many people are using their mortgages to buy houses in Los Cabos at 3%, 30 years. So the market is booming. Mm-hmm. So I would say that as far as the market and the mortgages, they still, they will continue very low, which, as you know, your Fed President Powell, the last week, he said that the rates are going to keep the same way until 2022. I think we're going to see a market booming. Mm-hmm. We participate a lot in the construction for some kind of hotels, especially for houses, but not for people, for foreigner people. I would say for people who live in Los Cabos, Mexican, who can, because we're not allowed to, even though we have dollars, we're not allowed to give mortgages at 3% for 30 years. I mean, it's absolutely out of our reach. But I think Los Cabos, especially Los Cabos, I wouldn't say Quintana Roo. I think Cabos is gonna keep being a boom for the next years.
Mm-hmm. That's good news.
And then don't forget, Claudia, that you have the baby boomers.
Right.
Now is the generation of the baby boomers. There are many baby boomers who worked at Wall Street. They have a good economic position, and they're looking for good places to retire. Right.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So let's take that view into account, because I think that's going to keep rolling Los Cabos in the next few years.
Yeah, they're still viable clients. They're not too old yet.
Absolutely.
Very good.
Exactly.
Another question. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Another question is, why are there so many different exchange rates? This is, and it's true. You go from one bank to another, or even when you're doing transactions online, the exchange rates between peso and dollar vary so much. And then another related question is, how do you see the peso valuation headed? Where do you see it going? Is it going to stay strong, as you mentioned earlier?
First of all, I don't have a right question. I wouldn't say that there's a wrong or right answer for why there's so many exchange rates. I think the peso, it's a merchandise, and depends on the demand and supply that everybody bank has. I mean, there's no way a flat line for it's another merchandise. So I think every bank has a different strategy in that regard. Maybe sometimes we really want to have people coming inside into our offices, so we put a very attractive rate, so we have people inside, and then we sell them another thing, or we try to make them happy, or we give them a bottle of water. So I don't have an answer for that. To be honest, I think that the peso is going to remain strong, because we haven't talked about the one very important thing. The quotation between the dollar and the euro, it's 120. The dollar has been suffering a huge devaluation. I think one of the reasons the Mexico peso has been keeping strong lately has to do with the devaluation of the US dollar. Besides that, we still have a macro system that is strong. I should be aware if we lose investment grade as a country, maybe in 21 or in 22. But I would say, and this is very difficult to say, let me tell you a very quick story. It's a funny story. When I used to work for Republic National Bank, we came to Mexico and we had a meeting with the governor of the central bank. And my boss asked Miguel Mancera, Mr. Mancera, can you tell me how you see the rate, the exchange rate at the end of the year? And he told me, Mr. Cyril, you know that a central banker, he can never say what he thinks about the quotation of the peso at the end of the year, not even tomorrow. So I'm not the central banker, but it's very difficult to say that. But I mean, I think we still have a strong macro environment, even though our ratio, GDP debt has been growing a lot, not because of the fiscal deficit, because of the shrinking of the GDP, but we have about 52%. United States, it's above 100%. Japan, it's above 200%. Brazil, it's above 80%. So I think we still have a strong macro environment. What will happen if we lose investment grade? Maybe we can make another interview first quarter of the next year, and we can talk a little bit more about this.
And what would precipitate that? What would make Mexico lose investment grade? Why is that coming up?
Pemex could be opposite. Pemex, it's in a very weak position, and we need again to increase the pace of foreign investment, to create jobs, to increase the economy, and then to go back to levels of GDP debt around 50%, and have a primary surplus in our budget. I would say those are the three main, in my personal point of view. I don't know if this is very technically, but that's, I mean, if there's
no, I think it's great. I know that I haven't heard a lot of this, and I'm learning a lot about Mexico right now, and I know our audience is too. And so it's really helping a lot, Daniel. So thank you for sharing all of this. What other questions do we have?
Especially because it's an expert opinion. You know, we all speak about where our economy is going, but a lot of us are not educated, and we don't understand economic trends as you do. So this is so valuable. Such valuable information. Another question is there a specific chapter for banks benefits in the U.S. Mexico-Canada agreement? Was there anything agreed in terms of that, you know?
No, the only thing is that the Mexican banks, before the NAFTA was signed, there was a restriction that foreign banks couldn't have more than 1.5% of the total assets. Now, as you know, they have about 75% of assets between American, British, and Spanish banks. So besides that, there's no other kind of benefits with the new TEMEC.
Right. Thank you. This is more fun than taking economics in college. That's all.
Economics, it's terrible because, you know, 6 months you say what will happen, and then the other 6 months you say why it didn't happen.
Why it didn't happen. Exactly. You can always justify your position.
Exactly.
Right.
That's a great economist. That's what a great economist does.
Are there some other things from
Yes,
the
we
chat?
have a local question. What is your opinion regarding Los Cabos economy in comparison with the rest of the country and its economic performance, particularly during pandemic conditions? Because, as you know, tourism is such a, well, it's the only thing that we have here.
Well, I think the pandemic made everything go very, very bad. But as you know, before the pandemic, Bajacaliforniasur was one of the states that was growing more than the average. Now, because of the pandemic, they close everything, so now they stagnate. But I think they're going to grow up again. I was reading yesterday that Los Cabos Airport was certificated as one of the most secure airports, the second secure airport in terms of COVID-19. So I think that we're going to see in the long run, and I know the governor. He's very. He still has a few years in office, but Mr. Davis, he's an amazing guy. He's very committed with the state. He's very committed with the tourism. He's very committed with the people who work for the tourism. He's very committed to give training and capacitation for the people who work for the hospitality business. So I think Los Cabos, I think being an appendix of California, and I'm not trying to say something that it's strange, but I think Los Cabos is an appendix of California and a little bit of Arizona. I think, and we were talking about that the other day. San Miguel de Allende. San Miguel de Allende, 36,000 Americans live in San Miguel de Allende. We have a huge community of American people. And you know what they've done? They've done a huge community helping the local community. And this combination between the foreign community, the American community, with the local community, with authorities, they've done a beautiful job. And if you haven't been to San Miguel Allende, you have to go to San Miguel de Allende. Another one of the nicest cities, small cities in the world. Actually, it was named a couple of years ago by NAST, was the name of this magazine.
On the NAST.
As one of the nicest cities in the world. And this is because you have this American community, which is very well organized, with a place that is beautiful, and with government. And again, like in Los Cabos, you have American community, which is very committed, with not just with the community, with the poor people, with community, with everything. You bring all your best practices to town. And then you have the people, the local people, and then you have the authorities. And I think this make a big synergies. And those synergies, they really make the difference in some places. And I think San Miguel de Allende and Los Cabos, in my personal point of view, it's a perfect example of what these synergies can do for a place.
No, it's such a great thing. And Claudia, we've talked about this in other programs. And I know, Danielle, when you and I were talking about San Miguel de Allende the other day, it's what I love about Los Cabos, and the same is happening in San Miguel de Allende, is you have Americans, Canadians, Mexicans, no matter what color, no matter what belief, no matter whatever, everyone working together as a community and to help each other out, and everybody's different thoughts about things being respected, people bringing best practices, as you said. And I think it gives a lot of hope for the future. And right now, what do we need most from our leaders is hope. And you got these people running around saying how terrible things are. And it's nice to hear you with a hopeful message. And this is what we need from our leaders. Where's people telling us, hey, this is going to be okay. We're going to get through this and we're going to be better. And these are examples of places where I think people are working together and showing that.
You know something, I have the opportunity to travel 2 times a year to Boston. I have many friends in Boston for obvious reasons. And you know, what you really learn, it's people are very concerned about climate change. That's talking about the hurricanes and tropical storms. So climate change is a thing that we really have to take a look at. And then you have in the United States, which I think we have to learn a lot, these non-for-profit organizations, which they really do a great job. And I think that you guys bringing this kind of ideas, these kind of examples, it's a wonderful thing, not just for Los Cabos. we should replicate it all over Mexico, because something this country needs. We have 50% of people living in poverty. We really need to be very strong in non-for-profit organizations. And we need education, and we need to feed people, and we need to give them opportunities. Because one of the problems in Mexico is if you're born in Mexico City, you have a different chance in terms of your future than if you were born in the South. So you have to level the field. And one of the ways to do that is with non-profit organizations at the beginning. So there's a lot of things that we have to really learn from people from the States and from other countries, because I believe that's something we're missing in Mexico.
Yes, indeed.
Other questions, Claudia?
Well, it's a question that it's not from the public, but it's something that both Corey and I think it's very, very important, is finding out what books would you recommend on leadership, and what is your favorite book on the subject?
Well, now I'm reading many things about digital transformation. There's a book that was written by 2 MIT professors, which is how to make your company a digital transformation company. I can send it to you, the exact names and the.
Yeah, please.
There's an incredible book written by, I think the name of the author is Isaac, I will tell you the last name, and it's the biography of Kissinger.
Okay.
Isaac, he makes a lot of biography books. I'm going to send you the name of the author. And then there's a book that I think everybody has to read. It's Germs, Guns. You know that
I do.
That book?
Yep.
And from Jared, from Mr. Jared. And it's an incredible book because it tells you why some societies were able to survive after so many years. And it's a very, for me it was fascinating. But then there's another book, which is like the opposite. I don't remember the author, but it's called Why Nations Fall. So Jared talked about you survive because of your geography, where you were born, if you're in the tropic, and then those guys came and they say, no, this guy is absolutely crazy. And I think you must read both, because you have
to make your own opinion.
Let me tell you how this book starts. The name of the book, and I will send it to you, the name of the authors, because I really ask the people that your audience to read those 2 books. It's Why Nations Fail.
Why Nations Fail.
Why Nations Fail. Let me, if I can do it in Google, I will give you the name of let me tell you how it starts. It starts with Arizona, 2 different
James
states.
A. Robinson, right?
Correct. And it starts 2 neighborhoods, one in the United States, a wall or a fence, in Mexico. In the same area, with the same weather, with the same conditions, people have school, electricity, toilet, correct, exactly. Power, prosperity, and poverty. You see, and it talks Nogales. It starts with Nogales, Arizona. Nogales, Arizona, Mexico, Nogales, USA. And it says, I'm sorry, Jared, we have exactly the same climate. We have exactly the same, we're in the same point of the Ecuador, but in one place, we have everything. In the other place, 60% of people live in poverty. It doesn't have to do with the climate. I think both are right. Because if you talk about 2,000 years ago, but if you talk now, how you can compare Nogales, Arizona with Nogales, Mexico? Right? Different quality of life, different health system. So I think there are 2 books which really can give us hope and ideas of how to build a better world.
Well, I mean, first of all, everybody saw that came to Facebook Live. So you got to go out and get that book, get it on your Kindle, whatever you need to do. Speaking from a kid that grew up in Nogales, Arizona for a couple years, I actually lived there for 2 years and would go and look over the border fence. And unbelievable.
Unbelievable, right?
Unbelievable. And especially
we have to change that. I mean, we're neighbors. We have to level why we have, and they explain what's the reason because of that.
Yeah.
And that's a huge opportunity for Mexico to understand what we know what this country is very well diagnosed, Corey. We have diagnosed the country for years. We haven't executed. We haven't implemented in many places the correct things to do. There have been many improvements. Mexico, it's a wonderful world. Imagine, just think about this. Look the tension that it's going right now between China and USA. By the way, there's another great book written by this guy. He has a Spanish name. Death by China.
Oh, Death by China. I've read that. Incredible book.
Incredible book, right? What's the name of this guy? Tell me the name of this guy.
I'll tell you. We got about a minute. We're going to take a break.
Read this book, because then you see the opportunity that we have, Mexico and the States, to become brothers countries.
Mm-hmm.
What's the name?
Greg Autry and Peter Navarro.
Peter Navarro. Exactly. He's he's Trump advisor for the trade, for the world trade, well, it's incredible what you read in this book, what those people have done. I mean, it's amazing.
It is an incredible book, and it teaches you about the whole world. It's not just about China, but it teaches you how everybody's intermingled, and it's incredible. It's incredible.
Absolutely.
Hey, we're going to take a little bit of a break. We'll be right back, and we'll wrap up the show with a summary in Spanish, and we'll say goodbye to you, Danielle. But just stay tuned with us. Be right back.
3, 2.
And welcome back to Cabomil News and Community Update. Wow, what a show, Claudia. What a show. We learned about everything, the economy, banking. We got some leadership things. Give us a quick summary. Before we say goodbye to Danielle, give us a quick summary of what we talked about today.
El día de hoy tuvimos la presencia del señor Daniel Becker de Banca Mifel y estuvimos hablando acerca de la economía, las tendencias a futuro, el impacto de COVID en la economía y su presencia como Banca Mifel en Los Cabos. Les recomendamos que vayan al Facebook Live de Cabomil News para que tengan toda la entrevista completa.
Thank you, Claudia. Yeah, it's very important you go to Cabomil News and go to Facebook Live, because you're going to get a lot of extra bonus material from Danielle. We talked about a lot of different things offline. We talked about the goals for Banca Mifel in the future. You're going to get a lot more quotes. Danielle, thank you. It's been a real pleasure, really inspirational, and we can't wait to have you back on the show.
On the contrary, I really appreciate your time, your invitation, and I hope to see you very soon.
Well, you're always welcome in Los Cabos, so we're looking forward to hosting you here.
Thank you very much. I will be there very soon.
Great. And next week, Claudia, we have a great guest coming on, Gianmarco Vela.
Yes.
Now Gianmarco might be surprised by me announcing him, but because we have not defined the time when we're going to do it, but we will figure it out, and he is going to be on. So we're very excited. A great entrepreneur in Los Cabos, and we're looking forward to having him on the show next week. And we'll probably have another guest as well. So we will keep you informed. Everybody stay safe this week, and thank you. Have a great one.
Have a good evening. Remember to follow our Facebook page, Cabomil News, and catch the full interviews online. There's a lot of bonus material. Thank you so much for tuning in, and catch us next week.
Have a great week, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Take care.
Thank you, Danielle.
Thank you.